And we're live.
Hi there, and welcome to the first live stream of Ronin Nazarin Talks. I'm one of your hosts, Solitary Ronin, and we're joined by Nazarinprod, and we also have special guests Chis Mohan and SJSArts, or the leader of the Rennie Harlan fan club in Europe. Today is a special show about special things. Pretty much about how our film viewing or films change over time, repeated viewings, and also as we change. But I'll maybe let Nazarinprod introduce the subject properly.
Wow, you threw that back to me straight away, didn't you? You just was like,
absolutely.
I was very impressed you remembered what the subject was.
Oh, yes.
I thought that was wonderful that you knew that. So yeah, basically, it was something that I've been thinking about before Christmas, and SJS had been talking about as well on his channel about nostalgia and how things change over time and how you're. Because I was noticing certain films I had affection for in the past, and I had trouble watching now. I just thought it was a good subject to get a bunch of people together, or in this case, idiots together, to talk about and discuss what our feelings are. So, is there any kind of film that jumps out at you, something you find harder to watch now than you used to? Or do you want me to start with one?
Why don't you start with one and give us an idea of what you're talking about, the template that you would like to use?
Well, I'm not trying to impose a template. I'm trying to make it as freewheeling as possible, and you're trying to impose something hard and
Just give us an example then.
I'm going to go I'll go for a famous one then.
Okay.
One everyone will understand. Star Wars. Right. Now, some of this is going to do with the fact I watched Star Wars like I don't know, many times as a kid. But now I know the film so back to front. I find it hard to get any magic from it. Really. It's just like it's one of those films that's kind of I've overdid it, plus I've changed my what I want from films as well. So it becomes a film that no longer has that kind of vision. Like I can watch it, but I'm not getting anywhere near the same joy that I used to get from it. Some of it is due to age and cynicism and being beaten down by life, but it's also I overdid it as well. Like a lot of people do with Star Wars, really.
It also translates to the sequels, etc., because that world is kind of consistent the whole way through anyway. So your experience of those, say, first three, even that we probably have all have seen hundreds of times, thousands of times, maybe between us all.
Yeah.
Means that when you come to watch a new Star Wars film or a new bit of Star Wars IP, that it's like it's more Star Wars and more of that kind of nostalgia-esque feeling. But if you're not getting as much out of it anymore, then you're not getting as much out of that new stuff either.
I mean, I've still got the action figures that I had as a kid. Obviously, going to the cinema to see them was special, whereas now they're all over the place. I can't remember who it was, but somebody that was maybe involved with it just saying there's too much of it now. So it loses that specialness because it's everywhere. And obviously, even all the modern stuff, it's more about callbacks than actually creating new stuff.
It doesn't help that the sequel trilogy was kind of crappy.
Yeah. I think
that's been kind.
Yeah. But then as you change, as you actually see Hidden Fortress, for example, and then you look back and go, well, that must have been influenced a bit. So it doesn't have that magic again. Again, as you say, overwatching damages films sometimes, not all films, but overwatching can damage films, and obviously you grow out of certain things. So for me, they're fine, solid threes now, the original trilogy. And again, there's plenty of films that I might name that if I never see them again, I'm not going to be upset. But obviously, I absolutely adored them when I was younger.
Yeah, no, I mean, I thought Star Wars would be an easy first one to bring up, just to
lose any viewers that we might currently have had.
I know.
Yeah, I'm already thinking about my idea of toxic nostalgia, because there are so many people who can't get over the Star Wars films, no matter how many times they see them and no matter how old they become, and they just keep like doing trailer reactions when they are 50 and crying their eyes out to Star Wars and having like 5,000 action figures on their shelves. And I think that's really the kind of the meat of the idea of the toxic nostalgia, that you just cannot move on, and you're gonna have this very conservative mindset that you always want the same routine, the same order. You always want to just watch the same stuff, and you are so close-minded that you can never move on from your childhood. So I think that's really pathetic.
Yeah, I mean, that was the thing. When the prequels came out, I was already over Star Wars, and that was late 90s. I was already kind of over it. It was like, yeah, I've seen this. I'll watch the prequels, but they're not going to affect me the same way. I know that already. And it's like, I remember when they came out, I was much more interested the same year that Eyes Wide Shut was coming out. The same year, it was just coming out after The Thin Red Line. It was like, that's what I was into. That's what I was really wanting to see. It wasn't Star Wars anymore. And it's like, and you saw a lot of people just weren't over it, and then they were like crying because it wasn't what they remembered. Oh my god, these films are flawed. It's like, so what do you expect? And it was like,
yeah, I mean, also the modern ones that watch the modern ones as in callbacks. I mean, I recently watched The Mandalorian for the first time, and I was only excited about the fact that the bounty hunter action figures that I had, you know, the ones that were always in the background, actually get lines in The Mandalorian. But that's all I was like, oh, I've actually got that action figure, the tentacled face guy. But that was it. Whereas I don't think Star Wars hardcore fans actually want to necessarily see new things. They just want callbacks to all the old stuff so they can feel that nostalgia again when they were 10.
Yeah, I mean, I can still watch the new stuff and enjoy the better stuff of it, but I'm not obsessive. It's like, oh yeah, that's that thing. I can enjoy it for like half an hour or something. I'll go and do something else, you know. And it's fine to have a lot of nostalgia as long as it's within kind of reason. But I was just thinking, the old film I've seen so many times, and it's like there's only so much. When a film's only it's a certain amount of layers, there's only so much you can watch before. It's like there's nothing new for me here. But I'm not getting the excitement I used to get.
I think it's also worth saying that those films aren't really made for us anymore. Like, I think there was a feeling that for many years after the first three films, that Star Wars had to be marketed at the person that was now 30, that was now 40, that was now 50, etc. And I think that's long gone. I mean, those films are very much made for a new generation, and for my kids, for instance, who get a lot out of it in the same way that I did when I was younger. So, I mean, that's why I think we can watch it now and go, yeah, callbacks and all, they're fun. There's nothing, but I'm not queuing out in the middle of the street at 12 o'clock to go and watch it anymore. You know, whereas maybe once I might have.
Yeah, please still get the tickets somewhere.
I get your Gamorrean guard outfit in the wardrobe.
Yes.
If you are not with me, then you are my enemy. Anakin, I loved you. You were supposed to destroy the Sith and not join them.
Yeah.
I don't like sand.
Yeah. Well, if we come from here, sure, yeah.
Yeah.
No. Like, laugh the way they added that to the Empire Strikes Back.
It's Return of the Jedi, you fool. But yeah, no, I can still enjoy them, but I don't feel the same way about them. But it's just that I thought that was an obvious, easier one to start with. There's probably much more sophisticated ones you can go to. I just thought, well, let's start with the basic ones so you can actually get an idea of what it is. Then we can go into. I don't want to make a Star Wars conversation with my lost a bit by myself doing my toys.
I think I can take that, because my first thought about this conversation was in a similar vein, actually, because I used to think that the Spielberg films in general were like the pinnacle of all cinema, you know, for a long period of my life. You know, you can kind of go back, and some of them are, let's be clear. I mean, Jaws is very hard to say is an unacceptable answer for greatest film of all time for some people. Like, I think it's fairly solid.
Well, apart from SJS, you'll argue, won't you?
But I mean, if somebody off the street says Jaws, I'd go, that's a fairly good pick for a greatest film, because it ticks all the boxes of what's supposed to do. But things like, even things like Indiana Jones films, right? I used to think were just the most incredible films for most of my life. And while I still think Last Crusade is pretty fantastic, the other ones are just very good, at what they do, rather than being held up the pinnacle. I used to do the movie rankings. I think it was Flickchart used to call the website. You used to put two films against each other, and it'd be like, oh, an Indiana Jones film comes up. That's always going to win pretty much against anything that I've got coming up against it. And it's like, oh, no, that's not really the same feeling. So those kind of family entertainment films that were all the rage in the 80s and 90s, still great nostalgia, still a lot of fun, but not necessarily the pinnacle of cinema for me.
I mean, I think it's, as SJS mentioned earlier, I think it's what your scope is. So if your scope is just those films, then obviously they will never get any worse. Whereas if you have a broader scope, then when you see different things, even of the same genre, then they will maybe go down a little in your estimation. I mean, they're still good films, but they will go down in your estimation.
Also, Chris is clearly wrong because it's really Temple of Doom's the best one. Also, that's we should point that out.
Yeah, I agree with Nazarin.
That's my favourite as well, sadly.
Yeah.
Not to gang up on Chris.
Toxic nostalgia in action. I don't know.
I could not resist that. I just couldn't resist like saying, Last Crusade, really? That's my least favorite of the films.
Is it really?
Yeah.
I like Raiders of the Lost Ark. I think watching it as an older person has really fallen off a cliff. Bar a couple of like famous scenes, the thing really drags, I think, for me. Like, it doesn't have like the impetus of a modern film at all. I think we were just there wasn't enough of that back in those days. And back in the days in the 80s when you didn't even get sugar in the UK, Raiders of the Lost Ark felt very rich and very, and now when we all get sugar, sponsored by.
I've been showing those films to my nephew, and he's really enjoying them. He's really into them, and you see them from a child's eyes again. And it's like, oh god, these are really. But for a certain audience, a certain time, you can't really have expectations of them beyond that. They're not meant to be anything beyond that.
More that, and that's it.
Type of thing, which I think is confusion because the toxic nostalgia thing is where people want. What they had as childhood, they want that to be cinema, and it's like that's not cinema. That's something specific. That's a certain part of cinema, but they try and expand it to be the whole thing. Which remember when Dark Knight came out and how everyone was saying it was the most amazing thing ever, and it was like, oh, shut up, please.
Yeah, don't get me started on that.
Yeah,
when you go, get started. When you go. You want to start SJS, on you go.
Yeah, I'll pick something else. I don't want to always talk about Nolan. But by the way, I actually like the Indiana Jones films. I hate pretty much everything else that Spielberg does, like Saving Private Ryan is one of my least favorite films of all time. I never want to watch Schindler's List again. I never want to watch pretty much any Spielberg film ever again. But the Indiana Jones films are something that I like to rewatch, and I'm actually planning to go to see the fifth one in the cinema, even though I haven't been in the cinema for the last 3 years, but I've kind of agreed with my friend to go there. So.
Yeah. I went to see Crystal Skull in the cinema, and like honestly one of the worst cinema experiences of my entire life, but I was very excited to go.
Yeah. Bull whip in hand.
and hat.
Yeah, I went to see the cinema as well, and I was like, one of those things, it'd been so battered by the time I'd seen it. It was like, not that bad. I went to see my friend, and we're like, it's not as bad as people say it is. It's not great, but it's not. I've seen worse.
It's not an Indiana Jones film, is what I would argue, but there you go.
The Tarzan scene was a bit much.
Yeah, that was too much. That's an offense to Tarzan's good name.
Yes.
Yeah, I've been joking a lot about the scene where he goes to the fridge and he survives the nuclear bomb scene.
Yeah,
like that's absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah,
that's almost as bad as hiding under a table.
Yeah. So if you see the jokes we're making about that film, you tell you what I think of Last Crusade. So
SJS, have you got a choice?
Yeah.
Start the ball rolling.
Well, I actually talked about this in my last appearance on the podcast as well, but it's Hacksaw Ridge So I used to think that this is the best war film of all time back when it came out. Back then, I still was kind of got emotional when I saw like sentimental
is what I'm
stuff.
saying. A Mel Gibson film. How dare you, sir?
And this feels like a Spielberg film, actually, because it has that amount of sentimentality and stupidity and the same type of kind of exploration of the American dream in a way. But anyway, of course, now I've seen The Human Condition, I've seen Come and See, I've seen Paths of Glory, I've seen The Ascent, I've seen Cranes Are Flying, and now I know that those are the best war films of all time and not the Mel Gibson film. And I'm of the opinion now that I think Americans cannot make good war films aside from like Stanley Kubrick. Yeah. But yeah, I've just grown out of this kind of sentimental spectacle type of war film. Now I want to see the humanist philosophical war films that actually tell me something about the human condition and not try to twist it around. Yeah.
I've never actually seen Hacksaw Ridge.
I mean, but I do think Hollywood war films are still sort of propaganda films. I mean, I don't think they can get away from that. That you have to feel sort of emotion and this pride and in the fact that we wasted an awful lot of life and all of that kind of ridiculousness that is glorified in war, rather than the deep exploration of character and the human condition and come and see exactly what war meant.
It's always that balance of, war's really bad, but we really love guns and we really love explosions and we really like
glorification
heroes.
of it. Yeah.
Whereas the best of the best war films, there is no heroes and there's no fetishization, which I can't even say at this time of the day, of guns and the military and flag waving. It's more about the horror of it. And America can't really do that without putting in a little bit of bang, bang, run, run.
The thing, they get uncomfortable with films that do that and they tend to shred them. Like I just covered the Big Red one, the Sam Fuller film. And because it was the madness of war, how crazy it was, and there was all a bit, is war murder or is it killing? And that was his big thing. And how crazy the whole thing was, they were very uncomfortable with the film that gets shredded by the producers until he finally got the proper version years later. And it's like, it's weird. Because I've actually been watching some war films for a video, all like 60s war films, like Longest Day, Battle of Britain, the 70s stuff like Bridge Too Far. And there is a jingoistic thing, but there's also a kind of weird thing where the most jingoistic one was the American one, Longest Day. Another one, the British ones that had American backing, were much weirder and stranger. It's like the British ones knew this was weird, that's a weird subject, and it went in odd directions because you'd see the American influence and the British influence. So I'll get into it when I do that video, but it was very strange, different cultures and different, like British story and American stories, how different it is.
Well, go back further. Obviously Churchill wanted Life and Death of Colonel Blimp destroyed. And it took years for Blimp to actually be restored to what it is.
Yeah. And I've been watching a lot of the Studio Canal, the Pathé films, the 40s, 50s war films that the British churned out, which is very much about this singular hero behind enemy lines that maybe won the war by themselves. There's maybe 40, 50 of those that have come out even on that line alone.
Yeah, I mean, frankly, the best war film in the last 30 years from America wasn't even directed by an American, it was directed by a Dutchman. And it was a sci-fi movie, Starship Troopers, because it was a piss take. But that whole thing, all that jingoism and propaganda and how they were using the love of guns to basically become a fascist society. And it's like, that's where it's got to, but they don't realise it. That's just what they're about. Those films are. It's just about.
But there's the genius of Verhoeven, because that was actually advertised as the opposite.
I know.
It's like a celebration of even at the point when they were, lots of people went to see that film and missed it.
I know. Yeah, but basically it was America versus the rest of the world. Mm-hmm. The rest of the world saw it. Oh, he's calling them Nazis, and the Americans were like, "Did we miss something? Were they taking a piss out of us in this one film?"
Or even something like Black Hawk Down at its heart is an anti-war film as well. The ridiculousness of going back, no man shall be left behind. It's just what. not a fabulous film, but I think of a similar kind of idea and theme. But the people don't like studios don't like financing that kind of movie at all in Hollywood. It's not for consumption.
Because at the end of the day, they want people to leave the cinema feeling good, even if it's a war film, which is very strange. But they still want people to go, our country's great, heroes are great,
Yeah, I mean, that film, I had a whiff of that just in the trailers. What we're talking about with Hacksaw Ridge, it was like, yeah, that feels jingoistic. I'm going to go mental here. I'm going to be shooting at the screen. I'm not going to this film. Because I've never seen Pearl Harbor in the cinema, because I don't know why.
Yeah.
I wanted to see explosions. I think.
What were you expecting?
I seen it too.
Yeah, I know. Is that thing is like, by the time we got to Pearl Harbor, the actual attack, you were on the side of the Japanese because Americans were so horrible. They were so gross. And you were like, come on, Japanese, kill the bastards.
Maybe history didn't end up like this.
What?
Maybe history didn't end up like this. Maybe there's hope.
Yeah. Plus, I like Japanese films, so someone's got to root for them. I mean,
yeah.
And so yeah, there's a kind of thing about those kind of American films. But I was off Mel Gibson after he brutalized Scottish history, Braveheart. I was like, nah, that's enough.
Freedom.
That's enough.
Yeah, you actually see YouTube reactors thumbnails to Braveheart and they're like in tears.
Yeah,
I mean, maybe it's out of context. They're maybe in tears for something else, but
no. I've been in tears for something else entirely. How much he, butchered British history, and
Yeah, those reaction videos are really weird when you see like film director reacting to Saving Private Ryan for the first time. Like, how the fuck haven't you watched these basic classics if you want to be a film director? To me, it's just baffling.
Yeah. As I said in one of my videos, I think my favorite one was 2001. And somebody said, I know SJS will appreciate this. Somebody said, "Oh, I can't believe how good this film looks," and I've seen Interstellar. That might be my favourite moment in YouTube history, to be honest.
That's brilliant. Well, what I'll say is I don't mind Braveheart because, to be perfectly honest, and I can say this because there's not an Englishman on the screen, the English have been reading, writing history for hundreds and hundreds of years. So why should Mel Gibson not get a go at it?
Because he's Mel Gibson. Nah, that was just the one that got me more than any other ones. And the funny thing was, it's not because I'm Scottish even. It was just like, I know this. But it was because it was I hated dialogue so much in that film. I hated most of it. There's also like it's a battle of Stirling Bridge and there's no bridge. It was like, come on, where's the bridge? That's the title of the battle, Stirling Bridge and there's no bridge. It was like, come on, there has to be limits here. There has to be.
It would have been much better with Christopher Walken.
Yeah, imagine him in a kilt.
That's all I'll say.
Doing a dance, doing his dance routines.
It's become pseudo-sexual now, but
yeah.
No. Hey, if you go down his pot to write it would write itself.
Well,
go ahead.
On you go.
Yeah, I sold my Braveheart Blu-ray a couple of years ago. Like, I didn't want to see it next to The Human Condition in myself. So, yeah.
I've still never seen it all the way through, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah, well, Braveheart or Human Condition now?
Braveheart.
Yeah, just in case anybody's unclear.
Well, most fans of my channel, or fans, I'm not sure what they are, but people who see my channel would know that I did the video about Braveheart and what was the film, Serbian?
Yeah, Serbian film. Yeah.
Serbian film as a double bill because I thought they were both as reprehensible as each other. So, yeah.
Good times.
Well, not to make this just into a bashing session, but I'll follow on from SJS because he mentioned Kubrick. Now, before everybody gets upset at me,
I'm ready.
I think this is more about how overwatching and rewatching can sometimes affect how you look at films. Because obviously, when you're younger, Kubrick is one of those people that you're told you have to watch Kubrick, you have to watch Kubrick, you have to watch Kubrick. And obviously, you watch Kubrick, and his films are amazing. But I have found over the last 20 years, I do watch Kubrick films less. with the exception of probably Doctor Strangelove in 2001, and possibly Pass of Glory and Barry Lyndon. I'm not going to list them all. But I think it's more about, apart from, I think it's mainly the point of how overwatching can make you just kind of not watch a filmmaker for a while. And Kubrick, who was in my top 5 rankings, if that makes sense. I mean, he's still like in the top 15, but also he has kind of fallen away a little bit just because I overwatched them so much when I was young.
Yeah.
So it's not a Kubrick bashing. It's just more an example of how sometimes rewatching can affect how much you actually watch, if that makes sense.
Yeah. It's just basically Ronin bashing.
Yeah.
But so can you actually see what the film is?
It's my problem, not Kubrick. So.
I've seen The Shining over 20 times and I've never gotten tired of it.
Yeah, I mean, The Shining, if I don't watch for another few years, I won't really be that bothered, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, that's what inspired me is, like I said, Star Wars, but there's also films like RoboCop, Terminator, films I watched as a teenager. These are teenager films that you would see in the late 80s that I watched way too much. I don't really have a problem with films beyond that period.
All fiction.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to mention that as well.
Yeah, but that's the thing, is like it's from a certain period where I overwatch stuff, and after I did that, I stopped doing that because I realized this is a mistake. You're going to know these films too much. You're better.
I mean, don't get me wrong. You know, every time I watch 2001, and I've said before, I know how they did stuff, but it's still jaw dropping every time I watch it. And I do watch 2001 a lot more regularly than other Kubrick films.
Yeah, but the fear of that means that I can avoid watching some of my favourites like Buñuel all the time. It's like I'm preparing to do a Buñuel thing again, watch quite a lot of films, but it's been a while since I've watched them. The same with Bergman. It was like it's been a while since I've watched them until we started doing videos together about Bergman. Just I didn't want to have that thing of not knowing all the dialogue before they say it, and because you can remember a lot of stuff even you don't think you have when you start watching films. So it's like trying to knock into that trap.
It's amazing when you haven't watched a film for 20 years and you put it on, and it's like that feels like I watched it last week. Not even great films, just like a film you haven't seen for 20 years.
Yeah,
like,
I think I told you. I saw this film, Running Scared, which was a 80s film that I'd seen quite a few times in the 80s, and I hadn't seen it since the 80s. And I watched it a few weeks ago for the first time, and it's not a great film. And I remembered so much of it. And it was like, wow, that's astonishing.
But it is funny how if you don't rewatch films and you think back, especially if it's a film that's had sequels, how the sequels morph what your appreciation of the original film was. Like, for instance, you mentioned RoboCop there. A lot of people forget how utterly gruesome RoboCop is as a film, as a really shocking indictment of that, even that type of cinema. Or the first Rocky film compared to the other Rocky films, what the Rocky films became compared to the kind of sociological study that the first one was. You know, it can be a very effective thing to go back and rewatch.
So SJS, if you want to go into a time machine and fast forward to your 45, how do you think you'll feel about Kubrick?
I'll probably
that's a simple question.
Yeah, I'll probably like him less. I think I will probably have different favorites then. Yeah, but I think he will still be one of my favorites, but maybe not like top 5 level of favorite. Yeah, I think already like people like Fassbinder and Bergman, I think I have started to like them more than Kubrick, and obviously David Lynch is my number 1, and I think he will always be my number 1.
Yeah, that's the thing with Kubrick with me. He was always my favorite. He's still in the top 3 or 4. I just know not to watch all the time. And other people have come up like Bresson, like Buñuel, like Ozu, that are up there with him now. So it's me and Howard Hawks. It's basically adding people to that list of great directors I adore. It's not like taking them off. It's just much more like, I know basically sometimes I've watched it too much often. I'll leave that for a while. And then
because the thing is, you know, great directors' work doesn't get worse. It's how you approach them. And if you get a wider scope, or if you change, you know, if it's a subject matter that you were into when you were younger that you've kind of drifted away from, or it's a subject matter that you're never really been interested in, then obviously you're not going to appreciate those films as much as you used to, or as you never did.
Yeah.
I think Kubrick's interesting for me because there's no denying the man made good films, but I don't think any of them really emotionally connect like some other. His intention wasn't totally to emotionally connect with people. I mean, there's that idea in 2001 that everybody wanted to go to space, and there's that awe, and it definitely that's the theme of the film. But you're not getting an emotional connection with that builds over time and over years as you change and become, older and become wiser and stuff. You're not really relating to 2001 on an emotional level. I don't think in the same way as you might do with some other films that you tend to like more as you get older. So
really, I still relate to an emotional level. It's just not to the human beings. It's about the sense of awe of the universe. And it's still there. It's still there, especially the end with the Star Child. It still gets me. So it's not the characters I'm it's a world and the ideas. It's still there. I always find Kubrick emotional. It's just he's not emotional in the same way that other directors are. So for me, it's not that I'm watching a co-director. I'm watching a director with emotions. It's just they're wired differently from other films. So that's why he's still one of my favourites, because I can connect to his films. Like all my favourite directors, I can connect to the films. I connect to Bresson films as well, even though he's not obviously emotional.
Yeah, he's very cold, and representation of themes, etc.
Yeah, but to me that he's not an emotional either. It's a bit different how we do it, but it's still getting to the same place in a different way.
The philosophical and thought provoking and all of those things, rather than about the characters, as you say, necessarily. Cool.
So, Chris, do you have a choice or a topic?
Well, I'd sort of said those Spielberg films, but I'm going to say just in general comedy. Comedy as a genre was something that I used to love, even going to the cinema to see. I'm seeing the American Pie films in the cinema and going, oh, these are brilliant. I love going to the cinema, seeing the new American Pie films, obviously, that are coming out. Is there any chance I will not go to the cinema to see them, but even when they come out, the likelihood of me even watching those rather than being on the background is really low. And I think my engagement with comedy as a genre has changed all manner since I was a young man.
Yeah, I mean, for me, sorry, on you go, SJ.
Yeah, for me, it's the other way around. That as a kid, I hated comedies and I just watched action movies and horror movies. But then in my late teens, I think The Big Lebowski kind of made me a fan of comedies. And then I got into the Hollywood comedies, the 30s, 40s stuff and other comedies. But I wouldn't say it's my favorite genre out there. But I think comedies can be really good. And my idea of a comedy is, of course, very different than other people, because my top 3 comedies are The Big Lebowski, The Shining, and Blue Velvet. So that's a bit different than other people.
The Mount Rushmore of comedy.
Death is funny.
You should do How to Get Into Comedy. Here's my 3 top comedies.
Yeah,
I was just going to say I'm more a fan of the 30s and 40s comedies now, rather than the 80s and 90s comedies that I perhaps grew up with, with the exception of Spinal Tap, obviously. But the 30s and 40s, I think, stand up more than the 80s and 90s comedies in general. But again, I think when I did my top whatever list, I think comedies didn't really feature that much. I think To Be or Not to Be was probably the highest one, and that was obviously from the 40s.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I think it's there's certain American comedies in the 80s I enjoy, but there's a certain type, and they are sillier and they're not as well structured as some of the 40s comedies, really. But then again, I watched Beverly Hills Cop recently, and that stands up really well.
I love Beverly Hills Cop.
Yeah, but it's rare. There's not that many that stand up. It's just certain actors and directors that have a certain period that works, and then there's a lot of garbage. Yeah, I prefer the 30s, 40s comedies. They tend to be funnier. They tend to have just more effort to the scripts and the situations to make it more interesting.
It's just funny. Sorry,
it's just not the gags all the time. It's a story as well.
I was just going to say, because obviously there's a large percentage of film watching public who just say, why should I watch black and white films and why should I watch films from the 30s and 40s? And it's like, well, a lot of them are actually textbook
Yeah.
A brilliant period of filmmaking. Like I used to hold Dumb and Dumber up as one of the greatest films of all time. And I certainly find it. I think it's very funny still, but I'm not putting it on my Mount Rushmore alongside The Shining and Blue Velvet.
Yes, of course not.
Yeah,
they're comedies that stand the test of time.
Yeah, I think SJS never moved that far beyond watching horror movies. If that's his idea of a comedy.
And now that I've kind of gotten used to Firewalk with Me and Mulholland Drive, I can actually laugh at those as well, even though they have moments that give me nightmares.
Oh God!
Still having nightmares about Firewalk with Me.
Yeah. So you want to fuck the homecoming queen, Jonah?
Yeah, don't get him.
But that's actually a tragic line. That so you want to fuck the homecoming queen. It sounds funny when you hear it out of context, but it's one of the most tragic scenes in the whole film.
Yeah.
But again, there's a thin line between tragic and comedy. So.
And David Lynch knows that line really well.
Yep.
Yeah. The thing is, to make me feel old, I actually saw that in its original release in the cinema. Mm-hmm. That was one of my early 18 films. I think it was one of those things, I wasn't even 18 when it came out, and I still managed to get in to see it.
Yeah, I saw Firewalk with Me in the cinema with somebody who'd never seen any Twin Peaks.
Oh, really? Well,
they did enjoy it, but
I was going to say it's not totally like it's not like jumping into Series 2 of Twin Peaks without seeing Series 1. It's just
I mean, the really big thing would be to take someone to Inland Empire who'd never seen a David Lynch film. That would really mess them up. That head would explode.
Yes.
On the converse, like Mulholland Drive, the first time I seen it, I don't think I'd watched any Lynch at all, and it was very hyped and very beloved. Boy, did I not have a good time watching that for the first time.
Don't drink all the Coke. This is the girl.
Yeah, like it's totally like baffled, as many people are watching that. But obviously, as you rewatch it or even watch Lynch's filmography, it certainly becomes something that you go, oh, I revel in Mulholland Drive now, rather than kind of bash it for being nonsensical.
Well, David Lynch is a director I don't watch that often because I really love the films, but I don't want to get too used to them because a lot of it is how he puts things together.
Yeah,
I don't want to see the tricks too much. I'd rather watch a little bit and then come back and watch another film later. I don't want to overdo it with him, really.
Yeah, and the converse with Kubrick, I can overdo it with Lynch all day long. So.
Yeah.
There's a short and a coat.
Yeah.
You overdo
it.
Okay, that's.
So, Nazarin, have you got another one? Sorry.
Yeah, I was just going to quickly say that another weird director that really makes me laugh is Sion Sono, with films like Love Exposure, Why Don't You Play in Hell, and even Anti-Porno. Yeah.
And Himizu, a laugh a minute, and Himizu as well. Like, it's just.
Yeah.
Crushing.
And Halo is really funny, by the way.
Yeah. Of course.
Okay, I'm trying to think of something good that's different. Well, basically, a lot of it is how you change really in your life. How do you see films differently? So this is going to be a weird one. It's not a negative. I'm not going for, I don't like these as much as I used to like them. It's just I see them differently. Is the Ray Harryhausen films. Because as a kid, you see them as a kid. You see them as oh wow, this is. And other films like this could be like the Richard Lester films. You see them as a kid, like the Three Musketeers, Four Musketeers, Superman 2 and 3. You see them as oh wow, what a adventure story these are. And then when you see them as a grown up, you really can enjoy them. But you see the fantasy world. You can see it, how it's been built and how it's been well structured, even around the limitations, and you're appreciating it in a totally different way. So you're actually enjoying the film. You're enjoying it quite differently from what you enjoyed when you first saw it. Even though you can still get enjoyment from what you first, from the adventure side of it, like the Richard Lester like adventure stories, like Three Musketeers, are satires. Like Superman 2 is funny, and the way Harryhausen films, you notice that some of the acting maybe not as good as you'd wish it would be, but the monsters have so much emotion, and you just appreciate the world building more. So it's just much more like you're seeing films that are based in a different way from before. Doesn't mean it's bad. It's just it's different. It's a different experience for you. You can appreciate them like, as we know, I love the Godzilla movies and the Japanese oddities. I'm not watching them as I would as a child. I'm watching them as a grown-up, enjoying the strangeness of that culture and what the mass production of that culture was for the mass audiences. You know.
Yeah, I mean,
it's interesting.
Yeah, it's weird because you can watch the Harryhausen films and appreciate more the technical side of it, but you still enjoy them as films.
Yeah.
Whereas perhaps with CGI, you just kind of, a lot of the time, you just go, oh, that CGI is so obvious and terrible, and it takes you out the viewing experience. But obviously the Harryhausen films in some way are more obvious that it's a technical thing, but because of the world it's created and maybe it's nostalgia, you accept that better than you do CGI. Or maybe that's just me.
Plus, they were all, the Harryhausen films are very much, I know we've talked about this, Saturday, Sunday afternoon films. You know, for certainly me when I was growing up, that was the kind of box that they were put in. And so, you know, watching them on a film appreciation level is not in the same context you're watching it in the first place, you know, and you're kind of looking at it and going, oh, these are technical marvels and these are storytelling marvels of a genre of film that wasn't getting made otherwise at that time.
Yeah. Plus, you have character actors doing little parts in those films that the theatre actors that come in and do a little part, and they're great. They're really wonderful in a very ridiculous part, but they really do magic. I mean, if you've seen Tom Baker in the Sinbad movie, he's amazing in a film for kids, and it's like you can watch old Doctor Who's the same way. It's like you see all the problems, the effects, but still, it's like they use like imagination in who they hire and how they write it for a certain audience. And it's like you can really appreciate it in a different way from what you were watching as a kid. So I'm actually quite interested in seeing how the mechanics will work for stuff that got me as a child and how they actually work now.
For sure.
Yeah, I haven't seen them, so I cannot comment. So.
Yeah.
That would be quite interesting, just actually, you know, because that's that idea of nostalgia for all of us, having grown up with them and kind of watching them kind of by osmosis over the years. It has somebody appreciate it, you know, and look at them on a new level. You might just totally go, what?
Yeah.
There's nothing here actually at the heart of it all.
The thing is, I showed my nephew when he was about 8 some of these films, and he loved them. He was just totally engrossed. Didn't care about the effects, just totally engrossed in the story, and he was fine. And it's like, so they still work if you show them to kids, you know, because kids just want the story. They don't care about their.
I often wonder your movie watching sessions with your nephew, Peter, whether you prime them. You're like the film scheduler, you know, when you're saying, right, in order to get you to this point in this film that I want you to watch, I'm going to have to get you to watch a short. We're going to watch with a 15-minute short cartoon to get you in the mood, and then we're going to take you in this next journey.
It's more random. It's just random.
So you get the desired outcome, you know, if I like this film that you showed me, Uncle Peter.
No, it's much more random. Like he doesn't listen to me at all. So, do you want to watch this one? No. Do you want to watch this one? No.
Yes, we're going to watch a comedy. It's based on a book. It's called The Shining.
Yeah, but that's the thing though. It's like, it is quite interesting because you get interested in other cultures and try to work out why were they into this? Why did they? Why is like 30 movies in this series? It suddenly is fascinating.
Yeah. And it goes back to something you were talking about there a second ago, Peter. You know, when you watch a movie at a certain time and you kind of think it's this genre, and then you watch it many years later and realize that it actually is a bit of a different genre. It's a bit like you'd said, Superman 2 being a comedy. I think it's portrayed as a bit of a horror film. You know, the outset, and Superman 3 is the comedy, but is actually the horror.
Yeah, because evil Superman,
yeah,
as a kid, was horrifying. And then that woman at the end, when she turned into a robot,
the cybernetic, indeed,
it scared a lot of people of a certain age.
And you appreciate those things on a level that you just wouldn't have when you were younger, or you were very. I certainly, as a younger man, was very caught up in genre as a thing. You know, oh, I'm going to see an action movie or a horror movie. I will like that. Or there's another type of movie, like a thought-provoking drama. Oh my God, I'm not sitting through 90 minutes of that.
Yeah. Well, that's why you give Richard Lester a lot of money to do a children's film. See how many people can freak out. You know, giving a tour that money just to see how we can mess around with children's minds.
Oh dear.
So SJS, have you got another choice or another?
Yeah, maybe I should talk about the Film Bros Bucket List by Chris Tuckman. Yeah. Because this reminds me of my teenage years so much. So yeah. So apparently Chris Tuckman is the most intelligent film critic in the planet.
Oh my God.
Talking about The Dark Knight and Marvel movies all day and never watching anything foreign. Yeah. But this is like my teenage years, because this is full of Spielberg films. This has Pirates of the Caribbean, 3 Nolan films, or maybe even more. I mean, it's 50 films that you must see, and you have to have like 4 Nolan films, of course. And
Pirates and Caribbean films.
Yeah, it has one of them here. Yeah.
Wow.
Well, it's Stockman. He thinks that the Hollywood studio films are better than Tarkovsky. Yeah.
Does he have Star Wars in there?
Yeah, he has Force Awakens.
Oh, not the originals.
Yeah, but this is from the year 2000 to 2015.
Yeah, sorry.
I know, but still, Force Awakens.
Yeah, he could have gone with Revenge of the Sith.
Fuck that guy.
Yeah. And he says here that Denis Villeneuve is like the most unique director out there when he made the film Enemy. Go watch this stuff here, Jacques Rivette and Yoshida, and tell me what is unique after that. Like,
I watched Prisoners for the first time last night. I definitely had that thought. If you only watched Hollywood movies, you know, Villeneuve does stand out as somebody that's like completely different. There's just not the avenue for people to explore world cinema and stuff like this. Those same people are never watching subtitle films because that's the bit Bong Joon-ho thing of that kind of 1.5 inches at the bottom of the screen is enough to be a barrier to an awful lot of people.
Yeah, because I've had people say I can't watch and read at the same time.
Yeah, but this book actually has one Bong Joon-ho film, but of course it's the American one, Snowpiercer.
Yeah, Snowpiercer.
And it has a Japanese film, but it's The Last Samurai, so it's Americans in Japan.
Yeah, exactly. This is the point.
Last Samurai.
Japanese.
Jesus Christ.
What is it?
I like The Last Samurai as well. I'm not having this. We're done.
Edward Zwick directed that as well.
You could have gone with Koreeda, on Sono Tsukamoto or something like that, but you go with The Last Samurai.
But Chris Stuckman hasn't seen any of those films. Like, you got to call him some slack, you know.
He made a review about Seven Samurai, though, so he has seen that, but he gave a warning to his viewers that it's in black and white and it's subtitled. Like, that's so awful.
I like that you've kept the book as like a historical record, SJS. You know, I'm not throwing it out. It's not useless anymore. It can be used for mockery. This is important stuff.
Yeah, but I remember reading this as a teenager, and even then I was thinking that how can it be plausible that all good films are American? Like, that cannot be right. Like, how can that be right that only studio films from America from the last 30, 40 years are the only great cinema out there? Like, that's just impossible.
Yeah, but then there's lots of Americans who are obviously brainwashed into it's the greatest country in the world, so why wouldn't their cinema be the greatest? So,
I would say in my case, watching just Hollywood films like that put me off cinema for a long time, because I think at a certain stage of your life, once you've seen nothing but those films, you're kind of like, well, I've seen just about everything that they're going to do to me at a certain point. Like, it's a very rare occasion that I'll get something outside the box. And I'd say for about a 10-year period of my life, I kind of disengaged with cinema as a whole until we get the advent of home streaming and Blu-ray, etc., that you could purchase for your home, and then it was opened back up again. Your availability of those films became much more. You know, it wasn't just Channel 4, BBC 2 late at night, hoping to catch something. Yeah,
imagine getting into cinema now, and you only watch Hollywood films that came out now, like it would be so horrendous.
I mean, in some way, we would have had an excuse if all we watched was American films in the 80s, and whereas, as you say now, you've got no excuse really.
Yeah,
there's so many rabbit holes.
It always was. You can always put the effort in. There was always foreign. Even VHS, you go to the foreign section and like HMV, and you could find stuff like that. They would cost you a lot of money. I know because I spent that money. So it was expensive, but you could do it. And then as you get older, you start to realize that's some of the better films. But they were limited. There's better choice now. But I remember I was buying stuff from Asia in the late 90s or 2000s and just Asian films. So you could do it. It just took effort.
Yeah, not really back in the 80s. Though.
No, I mean, you get HMV, you could get some films.
I got Man Bites Dog from John Menzies, bizarrely, in Sockets.
Yeah.
Which is one of the most bizarre things I've ever experienced.
Yeah.
One of the banned films, but sitting there in a news agent. So.
Yeah, that was a strange shop.
Yeah.
And this has like the Rocky film Creed as well, like one of the best films of the last 2 decades. And
has it got the original Rocky in there?
No, because it's from the 20th.
Yeah. Sorry.
I mean, that's the thing. Some of these films they're fun films. I like Creed, but it's like it's an entertainment film. That's it. That's all it is. It's like
Captain America: Winter Soldier. And this is film buffs bucket list. Even casual film goers know that.
I think that's the kind of...
It's just a ridiculous term.
Chris Stuckman's pissing himself laughing because he got your money, right?
Yeah.
Always free advertising.
There are 2 M. Night Shyamalan films because that was what got him interested in filmmaking. And
what, Lady in the Water?
The Signs and
Happening.
Unbreakable.
And Sixth Sense. Oh, Unbreakable? Okay.
Yeah, Sixth Sense is late 90s. So.
Oh, yes, so it is. Yes.
Yeah.
So it's Signs.
We have Spielberg's Minority Report. We have Ocean's 11, Donnie Darko, Spirited Away. That's okay, but... And then the only foreign films are like Old Boy and Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon that everybody has seen, even if they don't watch foreign films.
Yeah, I think, as you say, maybe the biggest problem with it is the title.
Yeah.
If he'd said how do you start in mainstream films in the 2000s, but to say it's a film buff's bucket list,
or if it's at Film Pros bucket list, then it would be right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's just weird.
I mean, you're pretty much describing Ronin's 4K collection here at the moment, anyway. So
just all the hits.
All the hits.
Chris Stuckman has a lightsaber here, so we go back to Star Wars toxic nostalgia, and he obviously has like 5,000 like toys and stuff. And but I'm really looking forward to his found footage horror film. Like there's nothing in this world that I hate more than found footage horror films, but it's Chris Stuckman, so I will watch it.
What, to laugh at it?
Yeah, we'd make a good video, probably.
Yeah, I'm waiting. I don't want to see a film. I just want to see a rant. Now, basically, I'll watch your video, not the film. There's some things I there's a certain class of people in the industry that I'm now avoiding. Like after Clerks 3, it's like a certain type of people like Kevin Smith or Chris Stuckman, who have no interest in the visual side or the thematic side, just put any shit basically.
Yeah, I even met Kevin Smith in London. So
yeah,
Kevin Smith.
And that film is my worst of the decade so far. It just is. It's so bad. It's so. Oh god.
And I watched that. Yeah, I watched Chris Stuckman's short film, Notes from Melanie, and it had a film buff character, and all he was talking about was like Jurassic Park and Mad Max and Star Wars and stuff like that. Like that's what cinephile means. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm maybe gonna try and be positive.
Go.
I know doesn't happen very often.
I was positive.
Yes, of course. You're always positive.
Sure.
Well, I'm going to take Robin and Marion as an example, and to a lesser extent, Wild Strawberries as films that I have appreciated more the older I get, because they talk about getting older and being older. And yes, I've said before, I haven't jumped into lots of Ozu because just on the outside, the themes don't really interest me as much as other things, just because of what the themes are. But I can certainly appreciate going old, your body not doing what it used to do as much. Fights with the Sheriff of Nottingham, obviously. But it's just that as you grow older, films will get better. I mean, we've talked about how films perhaps get a little worse or you don't watch them as much, but there will be films that will actually get better as you get more experience in life. Obviously, if you don't have kids and then you have kids, then films involving kids will change your perspective or your perspective on that film. So it's just that, really.
Yeah, you've got to mention getting grey as well. I know specks of grey in your beard as well. Just to...
It's just the way the sun's hitting it.
Films about death.
Yeah, basically.
I've always loved them. It's like I've always loved films with death. That's fine.
Yeah, I mean, Citizen Kane's another one like that, where I saw as a young person, I liked the technical side, but I didn't really appreciate the emotional side until I got older, and it was like, that's about loss in life rather than all the show off stuff.
Yeah, and then with Kane, as you learn more about Orson Welles, you get more of an emotional attachment to that film because it's technically about Orson Welles as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there are films like that. You just they're about aging, they're about things you don't understand when you're young, because you're an idiot when you're younger.
Well, you can't identify with the themes.
Yeah.
It's that thing that I often say. It's when you go to the cinema or you're going to the cinema as a young person. But I guess, yes, it's talking about the genre of films that he liked when he was younger. You want to be entertained. You think cinema's there just to entertain you. And if it's not action and it's horror, then, or even comedy to a certain extent, then you're not being entertained. You're not putting yourself in the place of the characters and empathizing with the characters and thinking about their growth and their journey. That's something that comes later in life.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is actually a very relevant topic for me this week because I've watched many classics again, and like White Strawberries, and now I actually love the film. Back when I watched it for the first time, it was just like a good 4-star film, but it didn't resonate with me that much. And then I watched also like Bresson's Pickpocket, which I didn't get at all when I watched it for the first time, but now as a Bresson fan, love that. And then I watched Shanshaw the Bailiff, and that was the biggest one for me. Like now it's probably like top 50 level, like Human Condition level almost, like absolutely divine level filmmaking. So yeah,
it's like a film I avoid because it's so brutal. Really, it's like I want to watch, but I'm going to watch in the right mood for it because I know it's brutal. It's just.
Well, I think those Japanese classics like the Mizoguchi Ozu kind of films, I don't know how you can connect with those as a younger person. Like they're not. They're as far from you emotionally as you possibly can be. Even, the persecution of women and stuff that happens in Mizoguchi's films is something that becomes a lot more prevalent as you get older and think about that kind of stuff,
Yeah, you just haven't had the experience.
Yeah, exactly right. You haven't seen it in society or anything like that. You have to have lived a little to get something out.
And I've also noticed that my studies, like now that I've studied in the university for many years, it really helped me understand these more like dense films. Like now, for example, I have a humanism class in the university, so it was really relevant for me now when I was Shanshaw the Bailiff, which is a very humanist film where we think about the human suffering and the value of human life and these types of things. So that really has helped me as well.
Yeah. Compare that to a horror film when you're worried about how gruesome or cool the death is,
Yeah. If you want one of those films, Project Wolf Hunting, I'd highly recommend it. It's awesome. That's
Project Rogue Hunting.
Wolf Hunting.
Wolf Hunting. Have you done a video on it, Peter?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah,
I have done one. Yeah, I try to remember what have I seen and what I've actually done a video on, because I can't quite remember sometimes.
Trying to remember, were you live? Were you recorded? Were you?
Yeah. Did I think
Was it in the past? Was it in the future? I can't remember.
Yeah. Yes.
Chris, have you got another one? Or?
Well, generally, again, bit like yourselves, this idea of it was the comment from Sam Davison on the Indicator stream we did the other night, where he was saying he didn't connect with some films and we connected with other ones, that kind of stuff. But this idea that anything that we would consider an Indicator film now, I just would have hated in my 20s. Or I just wouldn't have sat through it. I would have that kind of drama, personal study, and anything that it involved, you know, that would have been on at 11 o'clock on BBC One at night. There was just this other run, like even The Last Detail or something, I would have skipped over and went, but there's nothing happening. There's just a couple of people walking around the town, but you're not really thinking about the character relationships and the stage of life. It's a bit like what SJS said about the humanist side of things. Those things just don't relate to the younger person, again, because they're not a thing. And all those films have a certain look about them. You know, it's like, you know, the film stock wasn't as good, or the camera wasn't as good as other things that were coming out around the time. So I think just that idea that character study films are dramas in general, or a genre of film that I could watch all day now, but as a younger man, definitely not.
Yeah, I mean, back to Chris Stuckman for a second. It is that idea that nothing happens. So, you know, take Naughty or whatever. People sometimes are afraid of non-English, non-Hollywood films because nothing happens.
Yeah.
And like you say, maybe when you're younger, you just wouldn't be interested in them. But like yourself, I just love Indicator films, even though, again, cinematography's perhaps not going to be great. You know, the shot composition's not necessarily going to be great. But again, it's riveting character stuff. But if you're wanting spectacle and explosions and excitement every 2 seconds, then intense, riveting character stuff's not going to do it for you.
But actually, like Japanese filmmakers, for example, they do action films way better than the Hollywood guys. So, yeah.
I mean, a lot of the 70s, late 60s, late 70s films, a lot of them come out because they moved to the streets because they actually had film stock suddenly that actually could. You didn't need tons of lights for them. So you actually could have shoot the streets rather than shoot sets. But it meant that they did look rough because it was like an early stock. So by about the mid-70s, late 70s, they were much more sensitive film stock. But until then, it was much more like very rough stock because that's how it was developed. But for a long time before that, that's why so many films were shot in studios, because you need so much light going on in them.
Yeah.
So it was like a technical problem that they finally solved in the 60s, which led to a big change in filmmaking, really.
Yeah.
Which is suddenly why you've Indicator, because Indicator have put most of those kind of films out.
Yeah. But back to SJS's point, as far as non-English language filmmakers were doing that, that's why Seven Samurai and Seven Seal are so important, even though we kind of take it for granted now, because they can be gateway films, so people can actually watch them and go, hang on a second, there is something for me in another country's films, and then that can lead them down a path of broadening the horizons.
And one film I also rewatched this week was The Sword of Doom, which is one of my absolute favorite films, and like that is the proper action stuff, like that nihilist, brutal film, and the action scenes still hold up, even though it was made in the mid-60s. Like, I really don't know how they made it. Like, it actually looks like the swords are cutting the people and stuff, even though it was the 60s. So that was so impressive.
Yeah, I need to rewatch that. It's been
a lot of action stuff is more like, what's the point of view of the director rather than what's technical? Because if you have a bad technical director, no matter how much toys you have, it'll still look rubbish. And if you've got a good director, no matter what the limitations are, they'll still make it look good. It's just the talent and the person involved rather than, you know, what toys you have. Really. You can look at Hollywood. I mean, so many of the films have got all the toys, but the films are garbage.
Yeah.
And then you have awesome World of Chims at Midnight having almost nothing, and he's still making a great film. It's just talent, really.
Well, one of the best battle scenes of all time, and it was literally a park in Paris.
Yeah.
They shot that in, so for no permission and no money. So.
When you look at some of Kurosawa films, he's shooting on location when they had the far worse film stock, when they had to have all those massive lights up to just shoot it, and shooting in rain and some Samurai. And he was having to use that old film stock, which was very difficult, and that must have taken months to do properly.
Yeah, I just rewatched Throne of Blood 2 this week, and like the final scene with the arrows and stuff, like that's so impressive. Like I said in my video that I think that's probably one of the greatest scenes of all time in cinema history. It's so good.
Yeah, when the trees start moving, it's just wonderful.
Yeah. I think that was the Kurosawa film I saw was Throne of Blood.
I think Jimbo was probably my first.
Yeah. Rashomon was mine. So.
Can't think. Maybe Seven Samurai. I don't know.
Well, that's the thing. It's the one I remember first. So I could have seen another one before that, but I didn't remember. That was the one I remember seeing. So it obviously made an impression. That was the first one that really made an impression on me.
Yeah.
It was like, oh, this guy's quite talented. I might check the rest of his films out. He's got my attention.
That's all you need.
Yes.
And then it's rabbit hole time.
Yes. And then it's goodbye money.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I've seen all the 32 films that he ever made. So yeah.
Yeah. I'm trying to avoid spending tons of money at the moment.
Yeah, how's that working out for you?
Not too bad, actually. I'm not doing that bad. I'm not doing perfect, but I'm doing better than expected.
Right.
Yeah, because April's brutal. So.
I know. I know. March is May's pretty brutal as well. So I need to practice.
Yeah. Well, can I just mention Goodfellas? Now, this isn't. I'm not going to go into Scorsese bashing.
It will in 2 minutes.
But Goodfellas, probably used to be in my top 20. It was a 5-star film. It's now probably a 4. I mean, it's still a very good film. But I think on the whole, it's not necessarily just Goodfellas. I think it's American gangster films. Because obviously I can watch Yakuza films all day long. I can watch film noir all day long. But I think I'm pretty much done with American gangster films. And again, if I never see Goodfellas again, I won't be disappointed. But again, you just fall out of certain things. But Yakuza films with their energy and their unpredictability, I can watch them all day. But American gangster films, it's just... I mean, I've never been a huge fan of The Godfather. The first 2 are very good films. I don't have them. But in general, American gangster stories, I'm just pretty much done with.
Yeah, it's I like American gangster films, but I don't know. I've been compared to the stuff that they're doing in Japan in the 70s. They don't compare. I mean, I mean, there are a few in the late 80s, early 90s, like King New York and Mills Crossing. They found a different way into that genre.
Yeah,
but a lot of them are kind of predictable. You kind of know where you're going. And yeah, Goodfellas, I never thought I always thought it was too long, even when I first saw it. When we raved about it, I was like, this goes on a while, more than it really should. It's one of those films I always thought, if you'd lost 20 minutes of that film, it'd be a much stronger film. It just feels like it's gone to the point and it keeps going and keeps going and keeps going. Kind of like what Scorsese does a lot. That's the problem with gangster films generally. Because if you actually look at the kind of Yakuza films, a lot of them are like 90 minutes.
Yeah.
Or 100 minutes. And yeah, actually, that's all you need for characters who are that repulsive.
Yeah.
2.5 hours for a character you don't like is quite hard.
Yeah, that was my problem with Casino. It just went on and on and on.
I love Casino, but I know it's a problem film. But the thing is, I know it's not a perfect film. I just love that more than Goodfellas. But it's like, I know exactly, the people don't like it, I know exactly what they're talking about. It's just like...
Obviously, most Scorsese films have went down a little in my estimation anyway, compared to what I was when I was younger. But I mean, just that genre in general, I think.
Well, the thing is, when we were younger, it was like, when you were kind of young, it was, you must like Lucas and Spielberg.
Yeah.
Then you get a bit older, then you must love Scorsese. You know, and it was like I was never mad at any of them. Ultimately, I liked them, but I wasn't mad in them. Yeah. It was like I always felt like I was, especially Scorsese, I was always feeling I was watching someone who had something missing. Unless Paul Schrader was writing it, and then it would tend to be better. But I always felt that the writing was always a bit weaker than most of the other stuff in it.
Well, he's not a writer, so
yeah. And it just felt like some of those flaws came more apparent as you go on. I mean, I'm actually trying to avoid bashing Scorsese now because it's just boring to do.
Yeah, but hey, back to Chris Stockman, because he thinks that The Departed is the best Scorsese film out there. I'm shipping up to Boston. Hey, yeah. Like that soundtrack is like the worst soundtrack ever.
Inferno Affairs is much better. I'm offended by that existence of that.
Yeah, I couldn't believe how bad The Departed was on so many levels. How anybody could actually put that out thinking it's a good film.
Yeah,
it's held up in such regard.
Yeah, it's weird.
Because I can't even remember where it was, but somebody was saying that the Mark Wahlberg character was one of the most interesting characters in modern cinema.
I hate him so much.
He's just unbelievable. Nobody is like that. They just come in and verbally abuse people and then leave the room. It's just
I mean, the only good Mark Wahlberg role was the Boogie Nights one.
Or The Happening. He's amazing in The Happening.
Yeah.
I
liked that.
That's for different reasons.
The one film comedy the other guys was fun. Where he's a moron, basically.
So he's playing himself then.
Controversial.
Mark and the Funky Bunch.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, so any other good gangster films in American, it seems like it did become a lost art. Because they all want to be gangsters. They all want to be, after Scarface, they all want to be gangsters in these films, and it was just an imbalance in the films.
I haven't actually seen Blow.
Blow, I quite like Donnie Brasco as well.
Donnie Brasco.
Yeah, it's a good one.
I just rather watch The Sopranos and not watch any of the movies. So
even Sopranos I was never that big a fan of Sopranos either.
Me neither. But I think it's kind of the problem that Ronin's talked about with that genre in general. It was kind of done, and then everybody went to copy it and re-represent that and somehow dress it up in another way of being here's more Goodfellas.
Yeah, but I think Sopranos was
Empire and all that as well.
Yeah, it started well, but I just felt like it got to the point and it's still going for 3 more seasons, and it was like, I don't need to keep on watching this. I've got the idea of what this is. I don't need any more. So I haven't seen the last season of it yet because I was just like, I've seen this.
Yeah, I love it to death. I've seen it 6 times front to back.
Yeah. I mean, I think my biggest problem with Sopranos was that I was watching it alongside some other shows that I consider to be much better for my tastes. Things like The West Wing. When people are going, Sopranos is the greatest thing of all time, I was watching The West Wing, and to me, The West Wing was just different gravy when I sat down week to week. To any of that, but then that was very much, like I say, just my tastes.
Yeah, I was a big fan of other stuff, but at the same time, I much prefer
The Wire, maybe.
The Wire,
yeah.
The Deadwood, Battlestar Galactica, all those things that I was much more into than Sopranos.
Chris Stockman should do a top TV series of
bucket list. Yeah,
Supernatural. Don't want to buy Supernatural though, because it's not terrible.
I love Supernatural.
Yeah, no, I was going to say that's a terrible choice. That's a terrible choice. That's not a good one. But there were, I don't know, the DC Legends of Tomorrow or something.
I like that one.
Stockman loves Dragon Ball Z like me, so that's one thing that we agree on. So.
Yeah. I'm a Legends fan. Don't you dare diss that, Joe.
Right. Okay. That's it. You may be a Legends fan, but do you actually think it's good?
I really enjoy it. It's a comedy. It's like it's not. It tried to make drama the first season, then it became a comedy, and that's a good comedy.
Okay. I'll give you that, Peter.
Yeah, I mean, it's self-aware of how dumb it is. It's one superhero show that knows that.
Interesting.
I think Stockman is reviewing the Last of Us episodes now, so I think he likes that.
Oh, right, okay.
I haven't watched them yet. I'm waiting till they're all done, then I'll watch Last of Us.
I think they're done tomorrow, or they're done maybe the week after, something like that.
I don't know. I was waiting to see. So
did you have anything else?
I'm trying to think just now. I mean, things do change a lot. Like, but it's also, you changed. What about your friends? Do they change their tastes in a way that's completely different from your change of tastes?
I don't have any friends, so it's fine.
You are my friends.
It's like, the only friends I have are in my head, so it's fine.
All right.
Yeah.
They have a similar taste, not exactly similar.
Yeah.
It's a bit like Go ahead, SJS, sorry.
Yeah, part of that problem for me when I was young was that I had the wrong friends who said that popular equals good. Like one of my friends said that, and I think that kind of prevented me from getting into the great cinema a bit earlier, because I was always trying to agree with him about everything. When you're a teenager, you just want to agree with your friends on everything. So that kind of fucked up my teenage years. So.
Yeah. That's it. I was stubbornly me. Like, I was just stubborn as hell. Just to be.
It's good to see you grew out of that, Peter.
You know, the thing is, I learned early on, I'll go to cinema myself. I want to see a film. I don't care. I want to see the film. I'm going to go myself. And I just kind of hit the thing. I'm interested in this. I'm not as interested. I don't particularly care.
There's a bit that I always say, if somebody was to meet me from the outside, introduce a new person, go along, and they say, well, what are your interests? I go, I really love cinema, I really love film. And they go, oh, have you seen the new Matt Damon film? And you're like, definitely not. And then they're confused as to, I thought you said you were a huge cinema fan. And, these two things do not associate.
Yeah, it's like one time I was told the greatest film ever was Big Fish. And I was like, he found out I was a film guy. Big Fish. Okay, how do I not alienate this person straight away?
How did you do it?
I just said, "Oh, is that right?"
Yeah, that's that.
that was about it. It worked. Yeah. Sometimes is that right? That's one. I'm not really a macro film, but okay.
Well, when I was studying in London, like some of my friends said that they went to see Blade Runner 2049, and they said that they only went there due to the fact that Ryan Gosling is hot, and then they walked out of the cinema because the film was so boring. Yeah.
Don't sound too bright.
I think you're going for the wrong reasons.
Yeah. Yeah,
See, I can see somebody going to see that film, especially in the cinema and coming out. You know, that kind of evergreen glow that you get when you come out of a cinema, having just watched something that was very exhilarating, or something to go, like my daughter does it all the time. Every film she ever goes to see in the cinema, she comes out and goes, that's the best film I've ever seen. That's where I thought that story was going.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's strange because you don't get that buzz out of cinema as much as you used to. Really, I find it's much harder. Like, now when you leave the cinema, you think, wow, that was really amazing. You don't get that often.
No.
I mean, especially now, I find that the most of the films released that I'm really going to love, you're going to have to see them in streaming or something, and I have to project them or something to really get them. Like, most films I'm going to see in the cinema, I'm taking my nephew to see them, so they're not fully. Yeah. They're not going to. All I'm going to do is come out and say that was fun, or that wasn't as much fun. That's it. That's all I've got.
Yeah, I haven't been to the cinema since Kung Fu Panda. So.
Which one? First one? Oh,
yeah,
second one's great. Second one is genuinely great.
I enjoy all three. So.
Yeah. It peaked so much that he thought that's enough.
Yeah, I was like, nothing's going to beat Kung Fu Panda, so I'm not going back to the cinema again.
Yes.
Jack Black gives the greatest cinematic performance in history, just slightly better than Mark Wahlberg in The Departed.
Absolutely. Because for me, certainly mainstream cinema, if it's a 3 out of 5, I'm actually quite happy with that.
Yeah,
that's pretty much the most you're going to hope for. Obviously, non-English language cinema, I have more expectations than that for modern cinema. Not much more, because obviously the best cinema's behind us, I think. But certainly for mainstream stuff, it was a 3 out of 5.
Yeah,
that's
good.
It's done its job as far as I'm concerned nowadays.
Because I have a mentality is I know this is entertainment, this is art, and I'm not going to have expectations of entertainment that are insane. I'm just not going.
Yeah.
And I'll actually talk about them and rate them differently. I just don't think they're the same. So it's just like, okay, this is a 4-star for entertainment. If I was going to be brutal about it as art, it'd be less. But I'm not going to take it too seriously.
Just have to rate it what it is. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they usually aren't even entertaining, so that's the problem. Is there anybody in Hollywood who can actually write comedy these days? I can't think of anybody. So yeah.
You're talking to somebody who had to take their niece to see Pitch Perfect 3. I was in the cinema for that film.
Secretly loved it though, Peter, didn't you? You secretly
No, I know. I was the only male in the cinema.
Too many original songs, I hear you.
And just think if the end of the world had happened outside.
I know. I've named it, yeah.
You were the only male in the cinema.
Yeah.
Oh dear. Well, I'm going to go see Quantumania this evening, which will be my follow-up to watching Broker by Corriere in the cinema. So I'm going to be comparing exactly this conversation, you know, to see whether it can at least get the 3 out of 5. I suspect it will. Like all of those films are sort of a very solid, focused, tested 3 out of 5.
Yeah, I had fun with it. It's not amazing anyway, but it was fine for what it was for me.
Yeah, I'm going to enjoy it.
You know,
I had all their focus groups in, analysing every line and every special effect. So.
Yeah.
It's
pretty much what happens.
Yep. I've got Shazam 2 in 2 weeks. You know, the joys of being an uncle.
It's sort of invalid. This later stage of this conversation has invalidated everything we've been talking about for the previous hour.
I know. That's usual though. I mean, this
really makes me think of Stockman again. I have to.
Are you obsessed? You may be obsessed.
Yeah, it's. Do you want to rant with nostalgia anymore? SJS?
We have the Bourne ultimatum here, by the way. Too.
Oh, great choice.
Trick or Treat, 500 Days of Summer, Inception, of course, The Avengers. Well, Prisoners is here too, like Chris mentioned.
I say, but Danny Villeneuve is the greatest cinematic voice of a generation.
Yeah, I think he's like upgraded version of Christopher Nolan, basically.
Yeah. But
it probably is in actual fact.
It is, yeah. I'm very much on board in that. Yeah.
So. But SJS, do they have Speed Racer? If not, the books is damned.
Yeah, it doesn't have that. He probably hasn't seen it. So.
Oh well, it's not worth it talking about then.
Yeah.
I mean, we can't have at least a Speed Racer. I don't know what the world's coming to.
But you are big Michael Mann fans, so we have Collateral here.
There's worst film.
X-Men 2.
Yeah, where's Miami Vice? Where's Public Enemies?
He probably hated Miami Vice because it didn't look like the show. So.
Yeah.
We have Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol.
I kind of enjoyed that, but it's not.
I like that.
So, it's one of those entertainment films that are a lot of fun, but that's about it, really.
I go to fight for Ghost Protocol. And actually, one that I will point out, I used to think James Bond films were complete trash, and they sort of are. But I enjoy them a lot more as an older man than I ever did when I was younger, which is a weird thing because it kind of flies in the face of an awful lot of everything else that I've been saying. Yeah,
well, Solitary Ronin and SJSArts both hate Bond films. I have fun with them.
Yeah,
but
I love 2 of them.
Yeah,
for different reasons, for the villains.
Well, this book has the best one, so Casino Royale.
Definitive. There we go.
Yeah,
but that's like a 3-star.
Argument over.
Yeah.
So, argument over.
Yeah. My God. That sounds as bad as the Roger Ebert reviews used to get, where he would always get everything wrong, and then people say he's one of the greatest critics ever, and it's like, Really?
Yeah, he's Stockman's biggest influence, actually.
Oh God,
I have to say,
so much.
Since Ronin's Tight and Bound list that he put out the other day, isn't that what it was called?
Yeah, I was hoping for more perversions.
I know. I thought that actually sounded like my favourite 100 S&M films, but
That pretty
I
much
have to do that at some point.
You don't want to rush that video out. You've got to give some real thought.
The fact he didn't bound on it as well after that title was a bit weird.
Yeah.
So he could not already mention.
YouTube algorithm is just shooting out to me top 100 films of my life. You know, videos just on loop, and I'm kind of watching them until I get to something that's just unconscionable as a top 100 film of all time. Somebody had Gangs in New York in there the other day, and I went, "Oh, sick." Turn it up, but we're done watching. And some of them, you know, you watch and go, "This is a very solid list of top 100 movies." I applaud you.
Most of them are so horrible when they are the ones that they edit like 2 seconds shots, and they are just full of the Green Mile, Shawshank Redemption, Fight Club, Forrest Gump, and then the comment section is like, "Where is Fight Club?" if it isn't there. And
but I can sort of understand that because like that's my friends in real life's list. You know, that's totally their list, and I go, that's okay. That makes sense. But that was the Gangs in New York. I went, oh, for fuck's sake, like, honestly.
Yeah, that's actually many people's favorite Scorsese, even though it's like probably the worst Scorsese. Even his like short films, The Big Shave is better than Gangs of New York. Yeah,
and I mean that's the thing. I watched it last year, I think, for a video, Gangs of New York, and it was quite shocking how bad it was. So I'd not seen it for a long time. I hadn't seen it since like 2002.
Yep.
And it was like, wow, this is so bad. This is.
Yeah, I've seen it
the
once.
The phrase "hot garbage" was invented for Gangs of New York.
Yeah, it looks so fucking artificial, and it's so ridiculous, and it doesn't make sense, and the performances are awful, and
I think I would actually watch The Departed before I watched The Gangs of New York, just because The Departed is so amazingly bad, whereas Gangs of New York is just blandly bad.
And The Departed has Jack Nicholson, so that always makes it at least somewhat fun. So,
but his performance,
actually, neither of those films are fun.
Oh, it's great.
His rat impersonation is just outrageous.
The thing is, both of them are more. I'd rather watch either of those more than the Irishman again.
The Irishman was so painful in the cinema. I remember.
I watched it at home and I was pained watching that one.
Yeah, I remember when it was like 2 hours done, and then I saw the guy next to me looking at his like watch, and I saw that, oh fuck, there's like 90 minutes left, and I wanted to fucking kill myself.
Yeah.
You just read your Chris Stuckman book instead.
Yeah. This will be in here soon.
Yeah, probably will.
Yeah.
We'll do a revised edition.
Yeah. I was one of the few people come out and said this film's awful when it came out, The Irishman. I
haven't seen it.
Yeah, it's really it's got really bad special effects where they've got the De Niro's face. It's been de-aged, but the rest of his body's still an old man's body, and he's meant to be beating people up as if he's an old man because he can't really move very fast anymore. And it's just so embarrassing.
And that kind of makes me think of the downfall of the Criterion Collection, that they are actually releasing shit like this, like fucking Netflix movies and stuff.
That one was it's that thing is like when you see a director, it's like, can't someone tell him just to retire? Just someone tell him like your time is done. Just go out gracefully now. Just when you go.
Yeah, I like it when Ronin always says that he respects Scorsese for his film restoration more than his films, and I think Scorsese should put all of his efforts to that before he dies. So.
Yeah,
certainly the last 20 years, I think that's where he's been the most important, and the biggest contribution.
The man does have films in my top list, so
yeah,
the man has done a lot of films.
Two in mine, so King of Comedy and Taxi Driver.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, my favorite film in the last 20 years of his was a George Harrison documentary. So I really like that. I'm a George Harrison fan, so it's obviously it would have got my interest.
Again, maybe documentaries is what he should do more.
Yeah.
I think his next film is gonna be like over 3 hours long as well. I think I saw some news about
it. Get in.
Is that the Western?
Yeah, the Western serial killer film.
I think it has Leonardo DiCaprio as well.
And De
Of
Niro.
course it
hate him,
does.
so
Well, Gangs of New York TV series in production as well. I mean, this is just brilliant.
I mean, annoying thing with Gangs of New York is the idea was pretty good. It's just the execution. It's not like the idea was bad. It was like, I heard the idea was that these guys from that era run about the war in New York. I was like, oh, that could be really cool. I mean, gangster films mixed with Age of Innocence era, that could be amazing. Then you saw the film and it was like, wow, what happened?
You needed Sergio Leone to do it. After Stalingrad.
Yeah.
I think even Spielberg would make it better than Scorsese.
It was.
Obviously, if Nolan made it, it would be the greatest film ever made.
Yeah.
Especially SJS, because he loves Nolan.
Yeah.
We've hardly talked about Christopher.
He exploded there when I said that.
Yeah, this is the best thesis on Nolan that you can find. 4 or 5, like 4 one-page reviews on Nolan. So
wow,
goes very deep. Like we have Memento, and well, that's the one that I kind of get that it's here because it's kind of did something with the medium. But fucking Inception, like that just hurts my brain. Like roads going upside down and a minor plot, and that's the most creative film about dreams ever. Go watch fucking David Lynch films.
Yeah.
And is there pictures in that book as well to cut down the actual writing? Does he have?
No, there are these kind of like drawings or something.
Oh,
right.
Yeah, that's Batman,
actually
of course.
Less writing.
Yeah.
Billionaire orphan on a letter shoot,
Yeah.
and like pockets full of gadgets, and that's the best film of all time. Yeah, I randomly offend the fat man.
Yeah. So it cuts down in the amount of writing, so that's fair enough.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
Very high expectations there.
Yep.
I think Stockman has a couple other books out too. One was on anime. Yeah.
We're waiting for the reviews from you for these books now. SJS, we're waiting for them with
Yeah, you'll
bated
have to get
breath.
them.
You're making me Google this.
Oh my god.
I think he
Famous last
co-wrote
words.
it with someone, so it's not by him only, but someone else too.
Probably an anime expert.
Anime Impact by Chris Stockman.
Whoa.
Yeah, anime expert when all of them watch them with English dubs and stuff, and
Yeah.
know nothing of Japanese culture.
Yeah, it's a subtitle. I've never watched Akira.
Because his favorite samurai film is The Last Samurai, so that kind of tells you everything.
Oh my god.
It's so underrated, apparently.
Yeah, it's underrated because American's The Last Samurai. Like, oh my god.
Fucking Edward Zwick over Kurosawa and Kobayashi. I think wasn't he the director who made the Ghost World? I think that's a good indie film. But I'm
Terry
pretty sure it's the
Schweigoff,
same
that was
director.
Terry Schweigoff.
Yeah, that's a different director.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, that's pretty insulting. That's hang your head in shame for that one. That's pretty.
I'm gonna try and save you. Hold on.
Yeah,
Both sides.
this
Both
is
sides.
oh
Like I don't know these random indie directors. I rather focus on Presson and Godard. So.
yeah. Ed Zwick, the director of Jack Reacher 2 and The Last Samurai.
That was exactly what I was gonna pick. Yeah. Oh dear. Jack Reacher, the Jack Reacher film that's not about Jack Reacher. Yeah. Blood Diamond. What a great follow-up to
I remember that. Yeah.
The Last Samurai, indeed.
Another Leo DiCaprio film.
Yeah.
Yeah. Courage Under Fire, director of Legends of the Fall, lest we not forget.
Oh, that's one of the worst films I've ever seen in the 90s. That was terrible. That was genuinely painful to watch that film. I'm not sure I ever really got over it. I think I've still have to wake up at night screaming for that film.
But genuinely did direct one of my favorite movies,
What's that?
Glory.
I haven't seen that, I think so.
Since I watched Matthew Broderick, it was an impressionable young man. That's one of those films I'm afraid to go back and watch because I haven't seen it in like 15 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. But another war film, American Civil War.
But I just realized
Definitely
one
worth it.
offensive fact about this book, that it doesn't have any Rennie Harlin films.
Oh my god!
Oh,
Yeah. The Covenant came in 2006, so that should have been here
It
instead
could
of
have been the Legend of Hercules.
Yeah.
Oh,
Now there's a problem.
And one that is actually offensive about this book is that it doesn't have Mulholland Drive, but it has 2 M. Night Shyamalan films. So, what an expert on film!
Wow, it's
Yeah. Should be
I
filmed
think
with
that
small
book is-
letters.
a fence to cinema at this point. The way you've been describing it to us, it feels on the fence.
But then it's that difference between movies and films. Or is there one? But I think
Yeah, but the thing is,
between
even
movies and
if it's just movies, it still feels like you're Force Awakens. It's a bad sign. It's like saying you're not very bright.
And I remember
That's a stupid film.
Yeah, I remember when he talks about these lesser-known films, he always mentions just some like random Hollywood horror films that still like hundreds of thousands of people watch. But when I think about lesser-known films, it's like Japanese films that 200 people in the planet have seen. So it's just so different perspective. So
as lesser-known films, people that are mainstream, they're not lesser known. They're just they're lower marketing budgets. That's it. That's the only.
Yeah, the lesser known film in this book was the Babadook, that like horror film from A24, I think.
That's a pretty good shout, Babadook.
Yeah. I watched a very good lesser known film last night. It was called They Might Be Giants, which is real lesser known as from the 70s. George C. Scott. That's true lesser known, true great.
Yes. Absolutely marvelous.
Yeah.
Even though I'm not a George C. Scott fan, obviously.
It's George C. Scott website should be up soon.
Yeah. Joanne Woodward's fantastic in it as well.
I cannot wait for your top ranking of George C. Scott films.
It's becoming like embarrassing now.
Yeah.
It's really.
I should really stop using that and printing T-shirts of it. So.
There's Isaac Dunn making Garmon Bozai. Well, I'm just going to.
Garmonbozia?
There we go.
It's not even a real word.
Garmin Bosler.
What?
Same to you, Isaac.
Yeah, that's from Twin Peaks, of course.
All right.
Okay.
Yeah, it's that fucked up dream sequence, but Black Lodge scene in Fire Walk With Me.
He's quoting like a Black Lodge sequence.
Yeah, well, it's our thing. Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, I was just wondering, like, no, that's niche. That's as niche as you can.
Yeah, and it's like Garmonbozia, and then it has in the dialogue in brackets pain and sorrow, so that's what it means.
All right.
You should watch Fire Walk With Me again. You need to be obsessed about every single detail about the film.
All right.
I love you,
It's
James.
a poor show.
Yeah. That's
still the most moving artificial angel in cinema history.
Yeah. It is the most moving incest drama in film history. Really?
Yeah, Julie Cruz is the voice of love on top of it. So
yeah.
Perfect.
The soundtrack in that film is amazing. It's a really amazing soundtrack.
And it's also really great that Julie Cruz album, where you have the final 2 tracks are the tracks from the Fire Walk With Me. So Questions in a World of Blue and The Voice of Love, like that. So good.
World of Blue is an amazing track. It's a beautiful song.
Yeah, best song of all time.
Yeah.
Like it's from the best film of all time. Or favorite film, not best.
Yes.
But one actually kind of good film here in the book is Haneke's Cachet. Like that's actual cinema, like Haneke, what the fuck? Like, he probably watched that with English dubs though. But
yeah. Oh my god.
Yeah, I'm not really a fan of Kashi, but
I think it's really good.
It doesn't have much Kashi for me.
But I think the piano teacher is Haneke's best.
Yeah.
That's fucking
so we've
brutal.
had the worst joke of the live stream there from Ronin. Well done.
Hang about it, there's more time.
I was going to say, well done to anybody stuck around this long. Their payoff has been worth it.
Yeah.
All that for that. I feel bad.
I know.
Indeed.
Chris Togman podcast. I didn't expect
Yes, it's like, we just have to relabel it, rebrand it, and
I already made a 40-minute video last year, but not now talking about it here too. So.
Yes. Well, I think we've run this into the ground as much as we possibly can.
I think you might be on something.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I think we're going to end. So thank you both for coming along to this.
Yes.
Us live stream. You know,
a great being part of history.
Yeah.
So you just want to plug the channels before we go?
Yeah. Well, I'm the biggest David Lynch fanatic on the planet. Don't you fucking look at me! Yeah, and by the way, I'm planning to finally do a David Lynch ranking soon, hopefully. So look out for that. And then I have lots of other videos planned. I might come back to my Nolan comedy that I did last year. So hopefully that works out. It's kind of hard to write that stuff because it needs to be very creative. And I'm gonna continue my favorite films from every year of cinema history soon, and lots of other plans. So it's SJSArts on YouTube. Yeah.
SJS, remember, June for #1, right?
Yeah.
Right. Remember, it has to be June. It can't be anywhere else.
Yeah, and Wild at Heart is second. Snake skin jacket. It represents my individuality.
Very nice. And I do have a YouTube channel. God knows when I'll ever make a video on it. Like it might appear sometime in the near future, might not. Who knows? But books, movies, kind of not unlike my good friend here at SJS. Whatever floats your boat at the time. Whatever I want to talk
and
about.
Chris, we should do the collab sometime.
Yes, we do. Yes, we just we have to pick a time for that, but we'll do that soon. Actually, yes, it's a good opportunity for doing that for sure.
And Ronin.
So lots of Ronin films where you'll find the usual ramblings and the not being a fan of George C. Scott.
Yeah, the Rams are a madman. And you find me in Nazarinprod as well. So you find me droning on about some obscure film, or a Justice League TV show, or an Italian Western with it's secretly communist. So you find all sorts of weird things. So that's my channel. So thank you all, and thank you for anyone who watches this rambling, whatever the hell it was. You know, it kind of got out of control after a while. What can we do?
Yes.
You know, I expect Ronin to guide this, but he didn't do his job at all. So
no, it's because it's live. It completely threw me.
All right, yeah. So he's just keeping me in line. I like the ramble. He tends to keep us in line, but
it's because we usually record them 2 years in the past.
Yes.
Oh, and I plug for the book.
Go buy this book. This stream was sponsored by Chris Tuckman. Amazon links down below. Yeah.
No, there's not. There's not. We're not doing it. Check in Amazon if you want. That's as best we'll do. You know, Isaac, you buy that book. That's our challenge.
If you want to read opinions by a proper expert, go read the book.
Well, Isaac has the Simon Beck Nerd Do Well book. Yeah, right. That's one for cinephile to have. Right. Instead of like press-on books or something. Yeah.
All right. Well, that's us for now. Bye.
Take care. Bye. Bye. Oh, dear.